At the beginning of the film, we're introduced to two college students, Derry and his sister, Patricia, who are driving along a quiet country road on their way home for the holidays. With nothing but miles of empty road ahead, they pass the time by joking around, turning license plate numbers into silly games, and teasing one another. Things are lighthearted until a beat-up truck suddenly appears behind them, barreling down the road and aggressively tailgating their car. Derry tries to wave the driver on, but the truck keeps swerving and honking, acting like it's going to crash into them. It's a tense moment until Derry finally manages to move aside, allowing the vehicle to storm past and disappear down the road. Shaken, the siblings exchange some choice words about the crazy driver. Their nerves are still frayed when they remember an eerie local legend. Years ago, not far from this stretch of highway, a couple named Kenny and Darla were found dead, but their heads were never recovered. Not long after, they spot an old crumbling building set back from the road. Right next to it is the same ominous truck. As they watch from a distance, a bizarre figure in strange clothes drags something wrapped in blood-stained white fabric from the truck and dumps it into a huge pipe sticking out of the ground. Alarmed, Derry and Patricia try to call for help, but their phone has no signal. Things get worse when the truck suddenly reappears and starts chasing them again, this time slamming into their car deliberately. Forced off the road and into a field, they watch as the truck vanishes again. The siblings check their vehicle, and, after confirming it's still running, Derry insists they return to the creepy building. He's convinced someone was alive in that bundle the driver tossed. Though hesitant, Patricia agrees. They head back and find themselves at what looks like an abandoned church, surrounded by ominous crows. The giant pipe is still there, dark and foul-smelling. Derry peers in and hears something moving. Despite Patricia's protests, he climbs in partway while she holds his feet. He spots rats below and freaks out, flailing until she loses her grip and he falls in. Derry lands in what appears to be a hidden basement and quickly realizes he's not alone. Wrapped in bloodied cloth nearby is a barely breathing man, his torso crudely stitched with wire. The man tries to speak but dies shortly after. Horrified, Derry tells Patricia to go find help, then explores deeper into the underground lair. What he finds is beyond terrifying: dozens of corpses, bizarre contraptions, and a macabre display of bodies embedded into the walls and ceiling. Among them, he spots two he recognizes: Kenny and Darla, identifiable by a ring. Above ground, Patricia panics when another truck appears, but it's not the same one. Moments later, Derry emerges, dazed and pale. Saying little, the siblings leave the scene and head into a nearby town. Before going into a diner, they notice the rusty truck making its way back toward the church. Inside the restaurant, they call the police, but suddenly, the phone rings. On the line is a mysterious woman who eerily describes Derry's exact appearance and tells them she knows what he saw under the church. She warns that the place belongs to a creature no one truly understands. As the call ends, she tells Derry something chilling, and that is the next time he hears the song, Jeepers Creepers, he should run. Back at the station, Derry recounts everything he's witnessed to the authorities, but they're clearly doubtful. Even Patricia, though shaken, has a hard time believing Derry's claim that he saw hundreds of corpses sewn together underground. Things only get stranger when they return to their car and find it unlocked. Their clothes disturbed, as if someone had gone through them. A waitress confirms she saw someone unusual earlier, an eerie man who seemed to be smelling their belongings. Fingerprints are found on the car door handle, and now the police begin to take Derry's story more seriously. With the tension rising, the group, including Derry, Patricia, and a pair of officers, head back toward the church. On the drive, the siblings puzzle over how anyone could have possibly gotten back and forth to the church so quickly. Then word comes over the radio. The church is on fire. Firefighters are already on the scene, but it's too dangerous to get close. A shocking discovery follows: the fingerprints on the siblings' car match someone who's officially been dead for years. While they're still processing that, something suddenly crashes onto the police cruiser. As the officers react, a monstrous humanoid figure appears, wielding an axe. It attacks one of the cops, brutally killing him and hurling his head onto the windshield of Derry and Patricia's vehicle. In a panic, they hit the brakes and leap out. Patricia checks the other car and comes face to face with the horror, a creature with a vaguely human form, crouched in the seat, and a severed head lying on the road beside it. Whistling, picks up the decapitated head, inhales its scent, and then rips out and eats the tongue. Horrified, Derry and Patricia race off, while the creature loads the officers' bodies into its rusted old truck. Further along the road, Patricia spots a nearby home and decides to stop for help. The house belongs to an elderly woman surrounded by cats. Initially welcoming, she quickly grows alarmed when she sees the monster outside her property. Grabbing a shotgun, she confronts it, warning it to leave. The creature doesn't respond. When it finally moves, she fires, but it easily dodges and slips into the house. She goes in after it, leaving the siblings outside. Moments later, 2 shots ring out. Derry, watching the window, sees what looks like the woman standing there, but it's actually the creature, holding her limp body. With the flick of its wrist, it tosses her aside and sets its sights on the siblings. They jump back into their car and speed away. The creature leaps onto the hood, but they manage to throw it off in reverse. Not giving up, they ram it with the vehicle, only for the creature to spring into the air and land behind them. They double back and hit it again. This time, Patricia doesn't stop. She drives over it repeatedly until it lies motionless. But then, from its back, a wing unfurls and flaps feebly. One more pass with the car, and the siblings finally believe they've stopped it for good. They continue on to the nearest town. At the local police station, Derry and Patricia call home, promising their family they'll be there soon. While waiting, they're approached by a woman named Jess, the same woman who had called earlier. Locals regard her as a bit of a psychic, and she wastes no time getting to the point. She explains that the thing they encountered isn't human. It rises every 23rd spring for 23 days, hunting people and feeding on their organs, specifically those it finds most appealing. The organs replace its own, and it's drawn to fear like a predator to blood. Despite everything they've experienced, the siblings still struggle to believe such a thing could exist. But their doubts are shattered when the monster's truck is seen approaching the station damaged, but still moving. As it arrives, the power inside the building is cut. Jess warns them that it must have devoured dozens of hearts to survive being hit that many times. Inside, chaos erupts. One officer discovers a jail cell has been torn apart, and inside, the beast is feasting on an inmate. It moves quickly, killing anyone in its path. Officers scramble to get Derry and Patricia out safely. But the monster slips past their defenses, scaling the walls and climbing up to the second floor where the siblings are hiding. Along the way, it tears out the heart of another officer as it closes in on its next target. Jess attempts to ward off the creature with a prayer, but her efforts are in vain. The creature is undeterred by the prayer, and it doesn't seem to be interested in her. Instead, it leaves her alone. The siblings find themselves trapped in an interrogation room with no exits. As they try to figure out what to do, the monster watches them through the mirrored glass, then enters the room. It grabs them, sniffing them both, but seems to find Derry's scent more appealing. Just then, a group of police officers bursts in, guns drawn. Patricia desperately pleads with the creature to take her instead of her brother, but in a chilling moment, it unfurls its wings, shattering the window, and lifts Derry off the ground, flying away. The following morning, Patricia sits at the police station, crushed and numb. Jess informs her that her parents are on their way to pick her up. Patricia, needing answers, asks Jess what she truly saw, but Jess just brushes it off, calling herself a crazy old woman. As Patricia leaves the station, her gaze is drawn to the sky, where a crow flaps its wings, heading toward a decrepit factory. The eerie sound of a gramophone echoes from inside. This is where the creature now resides, and as we peer inside, we see Derry's skin hanging on display, his eyes hollow, now filled with the creature's own eyes. Sometime later, we learn more about the creature, known as the Creeper. It is a supernatural being resembling a bat that awakens every 23 years to feed on humans for 23 days. It can regenerate itself by consuming human organs, and every cycle leaves behind a gruesome trail of victims. 23 years later, a young boy is working in a cornfield, setting up scarecrows. His father, Jack, reminds him to secure them properly. Suddenly, their dog barks, sensing something is wrong. The boy, curious, notices one of the scarecrows moving. Upon closer inspection, he realizes it's the Creeper, disguised. As he sees the creature's filthy feet, fear takes over, and he flees. The Creeper gives chase, swiftly capturing him and dragging him into the air. Jack and his older son hear the boy's desperate cries, but by the time they reach the field, it's too late. The Creeper flies off with the boy, leaving them helpless. The next day marks the 23rd and final day of the Creeper's feeding period. On a nearby highway, a bus full of student athletes celebrates their recent championship victory. As they enjoy the ride, the bus unexpectedly halts. The driver exits to investigate, only to discover the tire has been slashed. She finds a bone-made shuriken embedded in the tire. The coach picks it up, realizing it's made from bones, sending a chill down his spine. Meanwhile, the students listen to a news broadcast about the church ruins being excavated, where authorities found hundreds of bodies suspended in the ceiling and missing organs. Some bodies are estimated to be over 200 years old. Back in the cornfield, Jack's eldest son, Junior, finds the Creeper's dagger. He runs back home to show it to his father, who is still grieving his lost son. The dagger appears to be made of human skin, and as Jack holds it, it suddenly flies out of his hands. He realizes that the dagger has a telepathic link to the creature. This revelation sparks an idea. Jack plans to create a harpoon, using the dagger to track and kill the Creeper. On the bus, the driver tries to contact authorities but can't get a signal. After a moment of hesitation, she decides to continue driving, despite the flat tire. That night, one of the athletes, Minxie, dreams of Derry, the Creeper's previous victim. In the dream, Derry points away from the bus, seemingly warning her of impending danger. The boy also appears, urging her to turn back. Suddenly, the creeper appears in her dream. Charging towards the bus and throwing something to the tires, Minxie wakes up to find that the exact same thing has happened in real life. The shuriken hits the tire, destroying it and leaving them stranded on the highway. As the students try to figure out what to do, a passing car offers a glimmer of hope, but the coach tells them to wait for highway patrol. However, as the coach places flares on the road, he is snatched by the creature. The students are stunned, unsure of what just happened. The driver orders them all to return to the bus as she searches for the coach. Before long, the creeper grabs her too, leaving the students in shock. Soon, the second coach is also taken, despite one of the students, Scott, trying to intervene. The remaining athletes scramble to lock themselves inside the bus, but they are left shaken. Scott tries to explain what happened, but the others are too confused. Meanwhile, Jack hears about the recent disappearances on the radio and realizes the creeper is in the area. Back on the bus, a student named Andy attempts to call for help, but is unsuccessful. The athletes arm themselves with a spear and a flare gun, preparing to defend themselves. Scott suggests running to a nearby barn, but the others hesitate, fearing the creeper will target them if they leave the bus. In the midst of the argument, Minxie spots the creeper's face at the emergency door. The group quickly hides, but the creature senses their fear and begins to terrorize them. It targets specific individuals, Dante, Scott, Minxie, Andy, and David, as its next victims. The creeper shakes the bus, causing a screw to fall from the emergency door. After flying away, Minxie loses consciousness. In her dream, she sees Derry again in the cornfield. He speaks of the creeper's 23-year cycle, warning her that it hunts based on fear and body parts it finds appealing. Minxie wakes up, frightened, and warns the others that they have until dawn before the creeper returns. She explains that the creature will haunt them again in another 23 years. With fear mounting, Andy frantically tries to call for help once more. As Jack and his eldest son walk along the highway in search of the creeper, they come across a wrecked car. Jack inspects it and realizes the driver is likely another victim of the creature. The son receives a distress call from Andy on the radio. Jack answers, telling Andy they're on their way to the bus, but it will take some time. They immediately set off toward the bus location. Upon hearing that help is on the way, the student-athletes cheer in relief. However, their joy is short-lived as the creeper suddenly appears, smashing through the roof of the bus. It grabs Andy by the head through the hole in the roof. In a desperate bid to save him, a girl stabs the creeper in the head with a spear, allowing the others to pull Andy away. The spear remains lodged in the creeper's head as it struggles to remove it, causing significant damage. The creeper eventually frees itself, revealing its disfigured, severed head before flying off, but not before crashing into the bus roof. The impact shatters the windows, and the athletes wonder if the creature is finally dead. Scott decides they should try to escape while the creeper is down, but they discover that the main door is jammed, and the emergency door has been deliberately destroyed. It becomes clear that the creeper intends to trap them inside the bus. When one of its wings falls inside, Dante playfully touches it, only to find himself ensnared as the creeper pulls him in. The others try to save him, but Dante's head is severed, and his body remains in the bus while the creeper keeps his head. David grabs a flare gun from Dante's pocket. As he looks inside the bus, he watches in horror as the creeper removes his own head and throws it. Dante's head emerges from the creeper's stomach, and it now uses it as its own, flying away. Scott forces the bus door open, determined to separate the creeper's intended victims from the rest of the group. With help still on the way, Scott insists on leaving, thinking the rescue will be too late. David argues with him, pointing out that he too is a target of the creeper. Eventually, David convinces the others to leave, allowing Scott to take the bus for himself. As they all exit, one student locks the door behind them. The group spots the creeper flying nearby, prompting them to run back to the bus, but the door is locked. With no other choice, they race across the field. The creeper throws a shuriken, hitting one student in the head and killing him instantly. As the rest continue to flee, the creeper throws a dagger that pins Scott to a tree. David and the others rush to free him, but just as they remove the dagger, the creeper pulls Scott away. Meanwhile, the student who remained inside the bus sees Andy sneak in, only for the creeper to grab him. But it shifts its focus to Jack, who has just arrived with his son. Jack fires the harpoon, striking the creeper as it flies off, dragging their car with it. The creeper manages to detach the harpoon, causing it to fall onto the car. But fortunately, it misses the son, who is still inside. Jack quickly reloads the harpoon as the creeper prepares to attack again. He fires, striking it once more, but the creature remains alive, flying away while still connected to the harpoon. The rope attached to the harpoon drags the car along, but eventually, the rope snaps, allowing the creeper to fly free. Meanwhile, David and his friend find a wrecked vehicle and drive off in a panic when they spot the creeper. The creature quickly pursues their slow-moving car, targeting David, who is in the back seat. David fires the flare gun, momentarily halting the creeper's chase. but it soon catches up again. In a desperate move, David's friend pushes the girl out of the car and slams on the brakes, causing the creeper to ram through the vehicle. The car flips, but everyone survives. David, though injured, gets out and finds one of the creeper's broken wings. The car explodes and the creeper rises from the wreckage, sensing David's fear. It tries to chase him, but its injuries slow it down. Despite its broken limbs, the creeper leaps toward David. As it nears, David shoots at it with the flare gun. But the creature still manages to land on top of him, attempting to devour him. Using all his strength, David fights back, trying to push the creeper off. At that moment, Jack arrives and shoots the creature with the harpoon again. The creeper struggles to move, but Jack relentlessly stabs it, each strike fueled by his grief over the loss of his son. The creeper bleeds out, and with one final piercing look, it folds into a cocoon. Lifeless. Minxie, however, warns that the creeper is not truly dead. It has simply entered a dormant state because its time has run out. Jack, undeterred, stabs it one more time, declaring it dead in his eyes. The surviving athletes, traumatized by the events, regroup and finally find some semblance of peace. The film then fast-forwards 23 years. The creeper's body is now a preserved monument displayed as a tourist attraction. Jack, now older, sits nearby, waiting for the return of the creature. A group of teenagers pays the $5 entry fee and enters the barn to view the creeper's remains. Jack, armed with his harpoon, recounts the story of how he killed the creature. As the teens interview him, he mentions that he's waiting for the creeper's resurrection, which is due in 3 days. The 23rd day of spring is approaching, and the creature will rise once again. According to legend, Jack, ever vigilant, waits for the day when he will have a chance to strike again.